Hey loves, my name is Iphannie and this is the Iphanniebgentle podcast. Today's episode is going to be an interesting one because I'm going to be talking about in-laws. Now, if you weren't aware, I've been married for the last 5 years to my sweetheart, and his mother and I have not always had the greatest relationship. However, he has a phenomenal relationship with my parents. When I say they talk all the time, they literally talk all the time, and it's a little bit annoying. I ain't even gonna hold you, it is annoying. I love the fact that he gets along with my parents, but the fact that his mom and I are typically always at odds is a bit frustrating. In the beginning, we started off on an interesting foot, which ultimately escalated into a really bad pair of feet. Which it surprised me because all of my ex's moms and I are still really cool. They all love me. We all get along. If I needed them, I could call them. They'd answer the phone. We could chop it up. We could hang it out. All that good stuff. But with her, it's just been different. So I know it's not me. I'm not really the problem. I just believe that my dominant personality just does not enable her personality. On top of that, people think that because you have a child, that child will never grow up. Meaning, that child will never leave the nest. They'll never create a family of their own. But in all actuality, when you have a child and they become an adult, it's time to let go, especially when they branch off and begin a family of their own. I think that's really what it is. My sweetheart's mom is so accustomed to it just being her and her 2 children that when he met me and she realized that he wanted to be with me and start a family with me, she felt as though she had no room in his life anymore. Now, I have no idea where she got that assumption from because I thoroughly enjoy having my man's family involved. But that may be something that she's just not used to. Now, I do want to give you guys a little bit of background on my mother-in-law so you guys can kind of understand the dynamic. She is Indian. She was born in India and she moved to the States when she was a child. But she was still raised with the same Indian customs. In India, when you have a son and they get married and he starts a family of his own, the in-laws typically move into the house with them and they live together. Now, although I wouldn't go as far as saying come move in with us, come live with us forever. I knew when I started dating my sweetheart that he came with a family of his own because of course his parents are still alive and he also has a little sister. So I never felt as though he would have to cut his family off in order to be with me. I come from a big family. I actually come from a big blended family. If you guys listened to my last episode, then you guys would know that my parents are no longer married. They're divorced and my mother has remarried. And my stepdad's family is massive. And then of course, my dad's side of the family is massive as well. So I can't really recall how many cousins I have. Hell, I have 6 siblings alone. So I have a really big family. And I would love nothing more than to just be able to blend our families together because I think it's such a beautiful experience. But that's not exactly what happened. Now, I won't go into detail on our family dynamic, but I will say it has been a trying one. Based off my observation, I believe my sweetheart was the oldest and he is the oldest and the only boy. So he bared a lot of responsibility within his mother's home. And when he met me, instead of seeing me as someone who could help share some of her responsibility and help kind of take the load off of her, she came into the situation as though I was an enemy or someone who was there to replace her. But that was never my intent. Now, mind you, my sweetheart and I have been together for almost 10 years, married for 5. And you would think by now that she would be accustomed to him being married and having his own family, but apparently that is not always the case. So I'm a little lost for words when it comes to the relationship that her and I have. Now, I will say these last few years, it has been getting a lot better, but trust me, it has been a roller coaster. I feel like sometimes I try my best not to have such strong opinions about shit that she does. But at the same time, if the shit that she does affects my household or personally bothers me, then yes, I'm going to have an opinion on it. So if you know me, I have a few do's and don'ts I believe will help a relationship build within the in-law relationship. These do's and don'ts will allow you to have a smoother relationship with your in-laws and your in-laws with you, which will ultimately take away some of the possible stresses that can occur in your relationship with your spouse. Because if you did not know, if you and your in-laws are at odds, then yes, your spouse will feel it, and it can possibly cause friction within your relationship with your husband or wife. So the first do that I have, there must be mutual respect. Be patient and kind with one another, and let one another know that you're there to support and love the same person. Don't, and I repeat, don't. This is like number one. Don't ever call each other out of their name or disrespect one another like that. Even if you don't agree with someone, there's a way to respectfully disagree with them. Do put your child or spouse's feelings first. So if you're the mother or father, you put your child's feelings first. If you are the spouse, you put your spouse's feelings first. When you do that, you will think twice. Trust me, you will think twice before you say and do something hurtful towards a person that they love. Because even if you don't love their person that they chose or their parent, if you think twice about it, you'll be like, you know what? If I do X, Y, and Z, this is really going to hurt my spouse or my child. Let me refrain from doing that. And it's just going to de-escalate the situation by 1,000. Don't treat the in-law or spouse as if they are replaceable, even if you believe they are. This one is huge because I have noticed that many in-laws have said things like, well, I'm his mom or I'm his dad. You only get one of those, but he or she can leave you and find someone else. Even if that's true, even if you really believe that with your whole heart, you as an in-law is showing the spouse that you're practically counting down the days until your child leaves them. So you will never respect them, which removes the mutual respect you guys should have for one another. Do respect the position and the role that they play in your child or spouse's life. This is a major key as well. Respect that I'm his wife and this is the role I play in his life. I'm not here to harm him. I'm here to love him and he's here to love me. Respect that I'm his mother and I will always love and protect him. And because he chose to be with you, I will now always love and protect you as if you're my own as well. I think this one is huge because I've noticed that many mothers, especially if they're single, treat their sons as if that's their man and you're the side bitch stealing them away from them. But they have to realize that that is their son and your son has made his choice, or that is their daughter and your daughter has made her choice that they want to be with this person. And regardless of how you feel, you got to respect that. If anyone here listening believes in the Bible or goes to church, in the Bible it says leave to cleave, meaning when you get married, you must leave your parents' household and start a household of your own. That's pretty much like the layman terms explanation of what that means, but that is what it means. Another do, it's basically basic things like speaking to one another when you see them. It's necessary. For me personally, I cannot stand when someone comes into my presence and does not speak. Do not get in my car, don't walk into my house and not speak. It is completely disrespectful. And it's almost as if you're going out of your way to cause a problem, because that is going to make me say something. Do be a listening ear. Everyone goes through something within any relationship that you have. And if your child or your spouse comes to speak to you about an issue that they're having with their parent or, of course, their spouse, offer sound advice even if you don't like them. Don't go out of their way and be like, yeah, I told you that bitch wasn't shit. Don't do that. Don't do that, because all you're doing is putting a wedge. And they're going to remember that wedge that you put there. Don't egg on a bad situation or speak negatively about the parent or the spouse, because all you're doing is making the matters worse. And once your child or spouse gets over the little bump in the road that they have with their relationship with their parent or their spouse, they will remember how you badmouthed their parent or their spouse, and that will cause a whole nother issue. And it's an unnecessary issue at that. Do learn when to shut the hell up. Sometimes we just got to keep our opinions to ourselves regardless of who's asking. don't use your influence to manipulate the situation to benefit your own selfish wants and needs. I do believe that parents know how to manipulate their children, even when they're grown. They have the ability to manipulate their children because they know what buttons to push. They raise these kids, y'all. They know exactly what they can and cannot do and what they have to do to get a certain reaction and how to get them to react the way that they want. So just don't do it. Spouses, they know how to manipulate too. So just refrain from manipulation. That is a huge key. Finally, do set clear boundaries for both the in-laws and the spouses. As an adult, you have to understand that you got to put your foot down when it comes to your parents and your spouse. Sit them both down and say, listen, this is who I love and this is who I choose to be with. You got to respect them and respect our union. And do the same thing when it comes to your parents. Sit everyone down and say, listen, this is my parent or this is my parents. You got to respect them. This is how you show love to me. Don't take sides with someone just because that's your parent or that's your spouse. But also, don't check your spouse in front of your parent either. Have a united front and then speak to your spouse about the situation in private. I've tried my best to keep my feelings out of situations and really put the conscious effort in putting my sweetheart's feelings first when it comes to situations with his parents. And I believe that I've been doing a great job. And he's also said multiple times, I'm really proud of you, babe. You're doing a great job. And I appreciate it. And once you feel appreciated, especially in that facet, it's kind of like a piece of cake. Once you start putting in the effort and they start seeing you put in that effort, then you will definitely start feeling and seeing the effort from the other side as well. Now, you do sometimes have those in-laws from hell. There's a movie with Jennifer Lopez, and I believe it's called Monster-in-Law, and she fell in love with this guy whose mother was crazy as hell. She literally tried to kill her, like poison her, because she knew that she was allergic to nuts. She tried to feed her some nuts. Honestly, they were both a little bit crazy. They did the utmost when it came to one another. But it wasn't until the end of the movie where J-Lo's character understood why her mother-in-law was the way she was. And because the mother-in-law felt as though she was not good enough for her late husband's mother, she ultimately turned into her. She was evil and conniving and just downright a monster towards J-Lo's character because she felt inadequate. Once they understood one another, though, they got along almost perfect. Pretty much for the most part, they were able to communicate easily and frequently, and they did not disrespect each other after that. I believe that movie was really an over-exaggeration, but it is an accurate description of what an in-law and spouse relationship can be if it's not done the right way. I say all this to say things like respect, common decency, and understanding is necessary when it comes to dealing with an in-law. Understand that you both love the same person in different capacities, and you're both there to make their life easier, not more complicated, because believe it or not, if you two are at odds, all you're doing is stressing out your child or spouse. Well, that's all for this episode. I hope you enjoyed my little insight on the in-law relationship. Thank you so much for listening and spreading the word. I can't wait for you guys to hear next week's episode because it's gonna be a juicy one. Until then, my name is Iphannie and this is the Iphanniebgentle podcast. Besitos.